This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. It's Browns Ravens week. You know I had to bring on Raven this week to talk about the game. Raven, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm feeling better than a lot of Ravens players are right now because a lot of them banged up right now. But I'm pretty good.
Yep. It's been a rough start to the season. I think we talked about this for everybody in the AFC North. People have lost guys for a significant time, right? Nick Chubb out for the year. Cam Hayward, Deontay Johnson out. Joe Burrow looks as iffy as he's ever looked in his career with that calf injury. And then you go to what's the last? Is that everybody? Did I get everybody?
I mean, you
Cleveland.
got a good chunk
Yeah. And then obviously Baltimore's had a ton of injuries.
Yeah. So
and it's been a rough start for the year for the AFC North, but realistically, when you look at all those injuries, what do you hope to get out of these first 4 weeks to feel like, okay, my Ravens are above water or at least not drowning, and we're going to be in a good spot so where if we get relatively healthy, we can still achieve the goals that we wanted to achieve at the beginning of the year?
I mean, hey, 3-1, that'd be great. That'd be amazing. It's a tough ask with going against Cleveland and the way that especially that defense has been playing versus how offense has been playing. Offense been hot and cold. They have been sort of spotty, especially recently. In the week 1 game against the Texans, there was a lot of sloppy stuff, but they were able to overcome that. Then in week 2 against the Bengals, they looked a lot better. It's like, all right, let's go. We got to get it rolling now. Then in week 3 against the Colts, it was like, man, what is going on? There were a lot of miscues and mishaps and misunderstandings and whatnot. So now you go against the Cleveland Browns and that defense, the way that they've been playing. And it's like every day, like I go on to Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I always see something pop up with the Cleveland Browns. Oh, this crazy defensive stat, or this, they only allowed a certain number of first downs this season so far. They only allowed a certain number of points. And I'm like, man, all right, Cleveland, slow down, man. Just relax. Because our offense, we still learning some stuff. It's still brand new. But hey, that's what football is all about, man. And with the AFC North, with just what I'm hoping to get from the Baltimore Ravens, just after these 4 games alone, is promise. No matter how the game goes this Sunday, I'm just hoping that we can get some promise. And what I mean when I say that is a promise is something to look forward to in the future this season. As far as the offense, as far as the defense too, the defense has been playing pretty good. Even with a bunch of people out there, still been playing pretty good. But also with getting guys back healthy. Because that has been one of the biggest issues with the Baltimore Ravens ever since the 2020 season has just been health. They continue to lose guys year after year after year after year after year. And it gets old. It gets really old really fast. It's been old really for a long time, but I'm waiting on something to give to where it's like, all right, we're going to be getting this guy back, getting that guy back. And some guys did return to practice. Linderbaum, Ronnie Stanley, Marcus Williams, Gus Edwards, they all returned to practice. But while those 4 guys did return, still a long list of guys that have not returned yet. And we'll see going into this game who ends up playing and who doesn't. But just looking for promise out of these Baltimore Ravens.
I forgot about J.K. Dobbins going out for the year too. Yeah, it's been rough injury wise. But when you look at this Ravens, like I think one of the things that really have not helped the Ravens is the amount of like small injuries you have on the offense, right? Where you got like, okay, you're going to lose Linderbaum for a couple of weeks, and you're going to lose Stanley for a couple of weeks, and then you're going to lose this running back for a couple of weeks, and then it's like, hey, this wide receiver, he might not be in for a couple of weeks. And the reason I say that is you're still trying to install a new offense, right? And the Baltimore Ravens didn't really play their starters in the preseason, so they're still getting these game speed reps together in an offense that is much different than what Greg Roman used to run. And a lot of this stuff is like, hey, we got to figure out what the timing is going to be on this route. Where do I think you're going to be if you have a choice route, right? It's one of the things with Odell Beckham. He's going to take those choice routes even when there's not a choice route, right? Like he's going to sometimes do that. And you have to understand, okay, he sees this and that. That's what he's going to do. And you don't really get that unless you're playing these game speed reps. And I think that's one of the things that has slowed this offense down. Also, it's a new offense. We don't know if that's going to work out, right, for this Baltimore Ravens team. And how do you feel like where they are in this offense and figuring this out? How do you feel like that fares for them this week going up against a Cleveland Browns front that has been getting as many pressures as anybody? And on top of, we know that the speed of these linebackers has caused issues for Lamar in the past, even without Jim Schwartz. Now you have Jim Schwartz there in control of those run fits. Do you think this is a bad matchup for your Ravens offense?
Yes and no. I would say bad matchup because, Cleveland's defense has been great this year so far. I would say bad matchup in those terms, but I would say good matchup because this will really test your offense. It'll really test how good your offense can be. It'll really put them to the max test this week. Because if Odell Beckham Jr. he could possibly miss this game, we'll see. Rashad Bateman, he could possibly miss this game, we'll see. So Cleveland, they're gonna bring it. It ain't like Cleveland gonna be like, oh, you know what? Because those guys are out and some other guys might be out. We'll take it a little bit easier. No, they're not gonna do that. So it's up to these Baltimore Ravens to really be like, all right, we're going against this Cleveland defense. We missing some guys, but no excuses. We still got to bring it. So it's going to be up to them to really overcome their deficiencies and be up for the challenge. So we're going to see.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some of this Ravens defense. One of the interesting things I see when I see y'all play is how y'all use Kyle Hamilton. I think Kyle Hamilton had like 7 pressures, and he had 3 sacks. I mean, do you feel like the way that the Ravens try to get to the quarterback, it doesn't, like Jadavion leads the team in pressures. There's still some presence there by your edge rushers, but do you feel like they kind of lean on those auxiliary pieces more? The Pat Queens coming off the edge, the Kyle Hamiltons coming through every once in a while. Let's say Roquan Smith. Do you think that's where a lot of Baltimore's, hold on, my camera, you know how the battery thing be trying to go in and out. Do you think that's where a lot of Baltimore's pass rush ability kind of lies for them?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because rushing 4, that's been an issue with the Ravens for years, for a long time. I don't remember the last time Baltimore was able to get pressure consistently with just rushing 4. They just haven't had the guys like that. Like you see games from Kyle Hamilton like that last week, which was a beautiful game. But it's like it's like almost a bittersweet thing because I loved it. I love Kyle Hamilton. And first round draft pick last year, playing safety. But how is it your safety is one of the leaders in teams, leaders in sacks on your team. You should be getting it from somewhere else too. Now I ain't complaining. I loved it. But I just wish Ravens could get it from some other places too. So with Odafe away, they missed his presence big time last week because they couldn't contain that edge. A lot of the Colts' biggest runs, they came from bouncing to the outside. Because Jadeveon Clowney, he does a good job of that. And like you mentioned, he has been doing a great job getting pressures, consistent pressures, winning his matchups. But Odafe away was out. So they're missing that piece right there. So they Ravens are hurting. But I just hope that they can find a way to get pressure from just sending 4, because that could make stuff easier for your defense. That can make stuff easier for everybody else. Now, of course, every team gonna blitz every now and then, some more than others. And that's why you do get Patrick Queens and Roquan Smiths and Kyle Hamiltons, and sometimes they will send a corner here and there. But that's the name of the game. As long as the team is producing, they producing sacks. Sometimes they're getting pressure on the quarterbacks. Wherever it's coming from, I ain't complaining as long as you're getting there.
Do you think this is going to be a real blitz heavy week against Watson, given that Watson's really struggled when he's had a ton of pressure? You saw what he was able to do last week when he wasn't pressured, played pretty well. This week, I would have to imagine the game plan is going to be to pressure him. Do you think they're going to just say, hey, we're going to pressure you? If you can stay in there and get the ball to the intermediate level, we'll let you have it. But I don't think you can do it. Like, you think that's kind of the game plan coming from Baltimore? Or do you think they're going to play more of a conservative game?
No, I think they'll try to get to him.
Hard, or was it just like a
No, it was scary.
curiosity? Okay.
I think it's a little bit of both. Because with Pat Ricard, with Todd Monken's offense, he's not really a big fullback guy. So with Pat Ricard, I was out. That's when I was worried, like, oh man, if they trying him at all these different spots, is his spot safe on the team, especially with him having a significant salary at fullback and whatnot? But he obviously made the team, and I expect them to use him a lot against Myles Garrett. But then, I mean, you still got Zadarius Smith, who we are very, very familiar with. So it's like, again, like you asked earlier, is this going to be a good or a bad matchup for the Baltimore Ravens? And like I said, a mix of both. But it's really going to take Todd Monken going to have to go deep in his mind for this one, because you could double Myles Garrett, who is a baller, but then what are you going to do about Zadarius Smith? You're going to trust Morgan Moses one-on-one with him? And so we're going to see. We're going to see how this offense pulls it off. I think it's very important that the Ravens, they get the ball out of Lamar Jackson's hands quick to slow down the pass rush. I think that the screen game is important. Something that we've seen throughout this season. I feel like with the Ravens in the screen game, I feel like this season alone, and just in the first 3 games, we've seen the Ravens do more screens than they have in probably the entire offense before in the years that the Greg Roman had it off, because they just simply didn't run screens in that offense. I don't know why. But sometimes what we've seen from the screen, just in 3 games alone, is sometimes it could be overkill. Sometimes they could just keep going to screens too much. But then there'll be other times where it's like, hey, this pressure's getting in. Why don't we run a screen? And he won't do it. So again, it's only been 3 games, so we still got to wait a little bit more to see more patterns and whatnot. But that's something that I noticed in these first 3 games. But I would think that in this game with this crazy pass rush like y'all got, that the screen game, it would be something that would be used a lot.
Yeah, and speaking of the screen game, we got to talk about Zay Flowers, who I think has been one of the most promising Ravens rookie wide receivers you've seen in a while, right? I think he might be the guy that y'all been waiting for, because I know how Raven fans are. Every time like a wide receiver, young one looks good, y'all get excited. Y'all hope this is finally the one, that we gonna finally get excited about. For a while it was Marquise, and then y'all traded Marquise, and then it's been a long time for Raven fans. They've been waiting for that one wide receiver to break out, and I watch him, I'm like, he seems like he's a more shifty, like, I don't know, he doesn't play like Steve Smith, but he plays like Steve Smith. That makes sense, right? Like, he's not the same type of receiver, but the same attitude of a Steve Smith. Like, he runs his routes angry. Like, he runs the football angry. And he's so slippery, so good. How do you think Todd tries to get him involved this week going up against three good corners in Martin Emerson, Denzel Ward, and Greg Newsome?
Oh, they're going to find a way because that's something that we've seen in these first three games. Like, they love Zay Flowers. Love him. He has been getting a lot of targets. Like, Todd Monken loves him. They got a bunch of plays that they draw up for him. Lamar Jackson loves him because he always looking his way. They love Zay Flowers. And when he gets the ball in his hands, you see exactly why. Like you mentioned, he's super shifty. I know a lot of people compared him to Hollywood Brown. And it's an easy comparison. They both shorter receivers. They both got drafted by the Ravens in the first round. Smaller guys. But with Hollywood, I think Hollywood was more of the straight line speed. He wasn't that shifty or nearly as shifty as Zay Flowers. But Zay Flowers, he got good straight line speed, but he's just extremely shifty, man. And it's crazy how just his change of direction, it's like that. But something that I saw in the last game, which I really, really liked from Zay Flowers, and I'm like, man, he was growing up right before our eyes, because you'll see a lot of times, and not even just young receivers, but veteran receivers too. Zay Flowers would catch the ball, and he have two defenders, like one on his left and one on his right. And with somebody being shifty, you would think like, all right, he might try to shake him and try to maybe go backwards a little bit and try to run around him to try to get some more yards. But what he was doing, instead of trying to shake him, he would end up just running straight and taking the yards. And he did that so many times last week. And I really appreciated that because he made the smart play. He made the smart decision. Because he can shake somebody, and he'll get one every game. But last week he was making, when he had two defenders on him, he would take the yards, and that's super important, especially in a game where you're going against a really good defense.
You know what he plays football like? He plays football. Yeah, I'm saying like mind wise, you could tell he was one of them kids that did not like being called small, like when he played football, because he will purposely sometimes, to make a point, be like, I'm not about to go out of bounds. Like, I'm about to go through your chest. Like, you're not about to do me like this. So he just plays football that way that we kind of all appreciate there. A question about Mark Andrews. Where's he been this season? Everybody thought that Mark Andrews was going to take that leap last year. He ended up having a good season, but not kind of that leap year that you were expecting from him. And then he comes out at the beginning of this year and he hasn't been as impactful. Is this just the offense is phasing him out because they want more receivers on the field? Or is there something not there anymore with Mark Andrews and that chemistry with Lamar, because you just haven't seen the same reliability and the same numbers that you used to see from him?
That's a really good question. I remember this offseason, there was some practices where they said Mark Andrews, he was heated. There was one practice where Lamar Jackson had thrown a touchdown to Nelson Aguilar. And they said right after that play, Mark Andrews was mad. He threw his helmet down, broke his helmet, and walked out of practice. And this was after a touchdown. So to me, that showed me like, maybe Mark Andrews a little uncomfortable, because now it's like, Ravens got a lot more weapons than we used to. And he may not be as much of the focal point as he's used to. But week one, he was out week one with an injury, but he came back in week two, scored a touchdown. And I remember going into the game against the Colts, with it being a game in the rain, with the weather conditions being what they were, I was thinking, all right, this is going to be a big game for Gus Edwards and Mark Andrews. But it wasn't. So it could just be coincidence, because he's only played in 2 games. He just scored a touchdown in the first, and in the second game he was a little bit quiet. He did make a couple plays, but wasn't just normal Mark Andrews self. So it could be him just getting in a rhythm. Him and Lamar just getting more into rhythm. They got excellent chemistry, obviously, but I think this would be a game to see if Mark Andrews is really back, because like Mark Andrews against the Browns. He be making some plays. So this would definitely be the game, the litmus test for Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson for sure.
Yeah, definitely going to see a lot this week. Very interesting game between the Browns and the Ravens. Always fun to do. This will be the Browns' 3rd division game. They'll be done with half the division slate after this, and they'll have their bye week. So, The season's moving fast for some of us, but yeah, it's gonna be fun to see. I think this is a real test. I think just any division game is a real test for your team, right? Like you just get a different level of it. I was talking to somebody about Deshaun. I'm like, look, he doesn't understand yet what playing in the AFC North means. And I think it takes every quarterback a while to understand. I think it took Lamar a couple of games in the AFC North to understand what playing in the AFC North means, because a lot of guys, you got a team like Cleveland in your division who's not that good at that time with 2018. You assume that that's going to be an easy game, but there's no easy game. Like, that's not a cliche in the AFC North. There's no such thing as an easy game. I don't care how bad the opponent is, because all these teams are rivals. And that's something that you look at, like the AFC South, that doesn't exist. Like, there's no huge Texans, the Texans and Jaguars. It's not like that. It's not like that with the Texans and the Colts or whoever. Like, I remember they asked him who was his rival in the AFC South, and he could not give you an answer. Like, he was like, I don't know. Like, we really don't have anything like that. I mean, he comes to the AFC North where every division game's like that. Like, even the Bengals, that's a big rivalry. The Ravens, it's a big rivalry. Pittsburgh. And you could tell it got to him on Monday night because, you saw him pushing and about to fight when you've never seen him act like that on the football field before. So I think it's a learning experience for quarterbacks once they come to the AFC North. You hear all this stuff, but it really is a different game. It's a different game in the North. It's going to be more physical. You're going to hear things that you cannot take back on that football field being said to you. And you just got to stay calm, man. It's not a regular week. Like,
that's true. Now, how you feel about what Roquan Smith was saying? 'Cause I know there was a clip that was floating around with Roquan Smith saying some things, and he the thing with that. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Roquan Smith, like he talks like the most respectful type of trash, because I felt like he was like, oh yeah, it's called the Browns called it, they called the dog pound, right? I'm a dog myself. And then he was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be a physical game and whatnot. We trying to go in there and take over. Then he talked about how these guys, their wife and their kids, they coming to see them, and it's like you going into their house trying to take over their house and beat them in front of their wife and their kids. But he like. And hear me say it like that. I feel like me saying it just now, that made it sound worse than what he actually said, because that's what he said. But I'm sort of paraphrasing a bit. But how did you feel about that clip that's going around and whatnot with Roquan Smith?
It's Roquan's first full year in the AFC North, and I think he's learning lessons. Right? You don't do it. Not before the division game. You don't want to give anybody extra motivation, right? And I don't think he meant anything by it. He's just saying, hey, look, man, they're going to play hard at home. That's all he's saying.
Yeah.
But the way he said it made it so bad in the quotes, where it's like, we gonna beat them in front of their wife and kids. It's like, you said that in the worst possible way you can say it, Roquan. All you had to say was they gonna play hard. It's home. They gonna want to protect home field. But hey, look, Tomlin's speech is a thing for a reason, right? There's a reason why Tomlin says all these nondescript things in press conferences during division games, because he don't want to give you no motivation, right? Yeah. We have seen this in the past. It's like, nah, I'm not about to. Look, Ray Lewis, he talks in the S. He was never like, we about to go to Pittsburgh and kill him. He was always, they got a real good team. Even when he played the Browns, he was like, they had a real good team. It's a game in the NFL. We got to make sure we win. There was no room for that in the AFC North. You cannot do that, because that little bit of energy could be something that gives them the extra motivation to go up ahead of you. And Roquan again, the AFC North has some rivalries, but he was on the other side of it, right, with the Bears. It wasn't the same as being on the other side of it. Yeah, but it's different. It's different. No other divisions like this. And you don't need to give an AFC North team extra motivation, especially when this defense is playing as well as it has, because I know that was meant for the offense, because Roquan plays linebacker, but who's going to take that the most personal? And you know how defensive guys are. You give them anything, they going to use that as a rallying cry. And I promise you, Lamar Jackson is going to get tackled at some point in this game, and some defensive player is going to yell at him, so you trying to beat us in front of our wife and kids. Like, It's just not the greatest quote in the world. And I think, they're going to use that. Look, what Juju said, Cleveland is, the Browns is the Browns. He was just saying, hey, look, they're the same team we play every year. But logic does not matter when it comes to trash talk, right? Like we saw this with Oregon and Colorado, where the Oregon coach was talking about clicks. And everybody was trying to be super literal about it. Like, look, man, that don't matter when it comes to the motivation. Like, you just need a little bit. And that's the thing. Deion gonna give you a little bit to go off of, right?
Yeah, he will for sure.
Yeah, everything. He'll give you, if you're playing for him, something to go off of and get hype about. But just that energy comes back around on the other side sometimes too. And,
well, at least Roquan, at least he remember what the team name was. And he wasn't going around calling Browns elves or nothing like that.
He was real proud of that dog comment too. He was like, they call themselves a dog. I consider myself a dog. And then he smirked. I'm like, you thought about that one for days. I saw that I was like, he was real proud of that one. You know what I mean? I hope Roquan don't get there and start barking. You know what I mean? Like, but Roquan, it's gonna be interesting to see what that looks like. Because look, if anybody can hold their own, it's Roquan Smith on that. It's not like it was like Ronald Darby out there throwing shade, right? Like that would be different. That's not somebody you expect to hold their own because of their status as a player. So Roquan's not a scrub. But look, it's the reason you don't hear Myles Garrett saying Lamar don't look like he used to or nothing. Like you don't hear. We've learned our lesson. Like this Browns team has learned their lesson about giving any type of bulletin board material because they've done it and it smacked them in the face before, especially in the AFC North. So, the Baker Mayfield was good for that, wasn't he? Like,
Baker. And it was, you know what? And it was just one game. But it was looking like, so we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But like Baker Mayfield was turning that corner. I said, all right, now Baker Mayfield, these Bucks sitting at 2-0. Then the Eagles came into town and everything got ugly, man.
Yeah, I knew that movie when I knew that movie. I see that movie before. I'm like, yeah, look, Baker will give you 2 hot, 2 cold, 2 hot, 2 cold, 1 hot, 3 cold. Like, you just got to expect it at this point. He's streaky. Like it's like J.R. Smith. Remember when J.R. Smith had these hot streaks early in his career, and we would be like, "This is J.R. Smith being the player that J.R. Smith is supposed to be." And then what J.R. Smith always ended up being J.R. Smith, like hot and cold, right? Like I think some guys are just hot and cold. We saw this with was it Perriman? Was Perriman a hot and cold guy? Yeah, where Perriman would be like, "Oh yeah, 2 weeks. Oh, he's back," and then. 3 weeks you don't hear from him, and then 2 weeks like okay he figured something out. It's like hey he's just hot and cold, man. Like I think sometimes we forget that players have a tendency to be hot and cold. Sometimes they can feel like great, play the best football of their life. Sometimes it ain't happening, and that's with Baker Mayfield. Some weeks he gonna be able to ball, and honestly, let's keep it real. They're gonna go as far as as their wide receivers can take him. Mike Evans can take him, right? Like Mike Evans is going to take them as far as they can go. If he's playing well, Baker's going to look all right. If he's not, he's not. And that's what happened on Monday, right? Mike Evans didn't have the greatest game of his career. And that's pretty much the offense for Baker, right? He can't just say, okay, Mike's not playing well. I'm going to go throw to Chris. I'm going to go throw to it. That's not how that works. He needs Mike to be playing at an elite level for him to look good. So, that's just what it is, I think. And that's why the Browns decided to move on because there's a limit to a guy like that. But always fun to have you on. Don't know how we got Baker Mayfield in here. Man, will never go away.
Never.
Nope. He gonna end up on the Ravens. I'm telling you.
He could have this offseason. Try to sign him. So, boy, that would have been
imagine
something.
Baker Mayfield backing up Lamar Jackson.
That would have been something, man.
Could you imagine your frustration when when Lamar has a bad game? Like, this week would have been terrible because they would be like, we should put Baker in. I don't think Lamar can run this offense.
It's always somebody. It would always be somebody, man. So, boy, man.
It was people trying to get on, what's his name? He played for Penn State. Trace McSorley in there instead of Lamar. And I was like, y'all got to be killing me, man.
They tried to sign Baker Mayfield. They also tried to sign Jacoby Brissett, too. So
Wow.
yeah, man.
Wow, man. How long till y'all get to Josh Dobbs? See?
And that was all before Lamar signed, obviously, but still, man, they were trying, man. But they said Baker just turned it down because he didn't want to be like in that limbo. Like, okay, if I'm here, then I'll be a starter. But if Lamar comes back, then I'll be a backup. So they said he turned it down. Turned down by
Yeah, look, I would understand that because he's been in limbo for a long time, right? Like since the last game against Pittsburgh in 2022 or 2021. He's been in limbo, basically. That's why he kicked and screamed his way out of Cleveland, because of the idea that he would be in limbo when the Browns had no interest in keeping him after that Pittsburgh game. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game plans out. Always fun to talk to you, Engraven. Everybody has a great day. Make sure y'all check out Engraven's stuff on YouTube. Posts some great content, NFL-related content, Ravens content. So if you want a game plan up against the Baltimore Ravens, get the latest scoop on these Baltimore Ravens, make sure you go check out Engraven's videos. Be respectful in the comment section as always. But y'all have a great day. Have a better day. You want to say anything before we head out, man?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. Shout out to you. And I hope everybody stays nice and healthy this week.
Clean game, man. That's all we need is a clean game, both sides. Nobody leaves, none of that. I've seen enough. You know what I mean? I just want everybody to be healthy so we can really get some answers about who has the best team, defense. We don't have to do the whole, this guy wasn't playing game, right? Like, I want my trash talk to be asterisk free. I don't know about y'all, so I want as many people healthy as possible. But, yep. Thank you for coming on, Graven. Everybody have a great day. Have a good night.